Hello, and welcome to the latest presentation of the Rift Valley webinar series. My name is Martha Booker Johnson, and I am the host for today's talk. If you are participating in the live webinar, you can submit questions or comments in the chat module of the Zoom application at any time during the presentation, or ask a voice question by raising your hand once the presentation is complete. Today's talk is from Daudi Gamba and Julius Taji. Daudi will be presenting. He is a deaf education expert and a PhD student in the Department of Foreign Languages and Linguistics at the University of Dar es Salaam. His research is on Tanzanian Sign Language with a particular focus on non-manual markers. Please join me in welcoming Daudi as he presents the role of eye gaze as non-manual marker in Tanzanian Sign Language.
Hello. Hello. Good evening, each one of you. I would like to welcome you all in today's presentation based on Tanzanian Sign Language. And my name is Daudi Gamba. And my sign name is how has been demonstrated right there. And in this research, I'm not alone. We are two. The first is I'm the one, and the second one is Dr. Julius John Taji. And his sign name is like that. And I'm also a researcher. I'm also a specialist in deaf education and sign language interpreter in Tanzanian Sign Language, but also a researcher in linguistics of Tanzanian Sign Language. Therefore, I would like to welcome you all in this presentation based on the roles of non-manual markers as roles of eye gaze as non-manual markers in Tanzanian Sign Language. Let's now have a look on the overview of this presentation. This presentation has been divided into 5 sections. The first one is introduction. The second one is research objective. The third one is methodology. The fourth one is the roles of eye gaze as non-manual marker in Tanzanian Sign Language. And the last one is conclusion. Let's now have a look on the overview of this presentation. This presentation has been divided into 5 sections. The first one is introduction. The second one is research objective. The third one is methodology. The fourth one is the roles of eye gaze as non-manual marker in Tanzanian Sign Language. And the last one is conclusion. Let's now move to introductory part of this presentation. Eye gaze is nothing but the act of fixating the eyes in a specific direction during sign production. For example, a signer can either fixate the eyes above, downward, or aside. And research proves that for a meaningful sign to be constructed or to be articulated, there must be 2 things most important. The first one is the use of hands or hand configuration, as well as the second one, which is the use of different parts of the body. can be either the different movement of the head, such as head nod, head shake, head tilting forward or back, but also the use of different movement of the shoulder, whether tilted, shifted aside or whatever, but also the movement of the body can be either body moved forward or moved aside, but also different facial action, such as the use of eye gaze, gazing up, gazing down, gazing aside. Not only that, but also the use of cheeks, either puffing out of the cheek or sucking in of the cheek, and also different mouth actions such as mouthing. All these non-manual markers, when are combined together with different hand configuration, they form a complete meaningful sign. Therefore, this aspect is very important in the use of sign language. But despite this aspect is less studied and documented in Tanzanian Sign Language. Therefore, our research intended to fill this existing gap by showing the realization and roles of non-manual marker in Tanzanian Sign Language. Let's now move to a research objective of this presentation. This presentation has got two objectives. The first one is to determine the various realization of eye gaze in Tanzanian Sign Language, but also to assess. The second one is to assess the roles of eye gaze as non-manual marker in Tanzanian Sign Language. Let's now have a look on methodology. This research used three research instruments to collect data. The first one is interview, the second one is document review, and the last one is free conversation. And in case of the population of this study, the study focused on collecting data from deaf individuals, and they were 15 in number. The participants were 15 in number. And talking of the study area now, the study collected data in focusing on the Dar es Salaam region. And in case of the analysis of the data, the study used the thematic analysis. Let's now move to the eye gaze in Tanzanian Sign Language. The eye gaze in Tanzanian Sign Language, the study found out that there are 4 types of eye gaze in Tanzanian Sign Language. The first one is eye gazing up or downward. The second one, let me show it. The first one, this one. Then the second one, this one. The eye gaze ahead, gazing ahead is the second one, and the third one is the eye gazing aside. It can be either the right side or the left side, and the last one is gaze shift. Let's now have a look on the first type, which is eye gaze upward. This particular action or this particular feature happens when the signer form a certain sign, but with an eye focusing up only and not in any other direction. If it happens that maybe you are forming a particular sign with focusing in a different direction, then that sign becomes not right. An example of such a sign in Tanzanian Sign Language is the sign God, where the palm is pointed up, while the palm of the hand is pointed up with eye gaze set, focusing in the same direction, fixated up. Yes. The second example of the sign that use the same feature of eye fixated up is the sign heaven. The sign heaven, where the palms of the both hands are moved upward, while the eyes also fixated up, and it's not allowed to form that sign with eyes fixated down. This is similarly found in British Sign Language, where the sign God in British Sign Language is formed with an index finger pointed up, while the eyes also pointed or fixated in the same direction. If it happened that the eyes are fixated in ahead, it simply means both instead of God. Therefore, it's quite important for one to fixate the eyes above so as to refer to God. The second form of eye gaze is eye gaze downward. This happens when a signer or an individual signing fixates the eyes downward when forming certain sign. And an example of such a sign in Tanzanian Sign Language is the sign, this one here, the sign glaive, where the palms are are moved facing down, while the eyes are also fixated downward. Therefore, it's not supposed to form that particular sign where the eyes are fixated upward. For the sign to be grammatically, it should have fixated down. The second sign is fertilizer, where the eyes are also fixated down, while the signer squeezing the fingers. The third types is eye gaze ahead. Eye gaze ahead or in front. Such feature occurs when a signer form a particular sign with the eye gazing ahead of him or her. An example of such sign is the sign in Tanzanian Sign Language is sign now, where the palms are facing up but moved downward and upward, while the eyes facing ahead of the signer. The fourth type of eye gaze is eye gaze aside. It can be either this happens when the signer is focusing or fixate the eyes either in a right direction or the left direction in either side. An example of that sign in Tanzanian Sign Language is the sign his or hers. His or hers. Therefore, it simply denotes it is third person pronoun. Therefore, it can be either rightward or leftward. It is quite the same. So one should not direct the palm in ahead of him. It will communicate different pronoun. The last movement or the last the gaze is the eye gaze shift. This occurs when normally the hand move in a certain direction from a certain point to the other point, then the eyes are also following the same direction, such as the sign they in Tanzanian Sign Language. The palm is moved from one point of the body of the signer to the other point, either from right to left, or normally from left, then moved to the right, and the eyes also move in a similar direction, and simply denote that it is more than one person. And after we have done with the realization of different eye gaze, let's now move to the roles of the eye gaze. The first one is the eye gaze used as the sign phoneme. This will simply mean that the eyes take, the eyes occurs as the necessary part of creating a sign combined with non-manual markers. Therefore, when they are combined together, they form a complete meaningful sign, which requires the certain movement of the hands or certain configuration of the hands with a certain direction of the eye gaze. Taking a sign like ozone, the sign like ozone, which the palm of the hand is moved back of the head of the signer, then the eyes fixated up. Therefore, that sign to sound as an ozone layer, then it should have, the eyes should face above. And the other sign is corpse, the sign corpse. The first sign, ozone, we have said that we are fixating the eyes above. And in case of the sign corpse, almighty, as we know that the corpse is the dead person, maybe placed somewhere down there. Therefore, when you form that particular sign, the eyes must look an imaginary corpse that has been pressed somewhere, and not else any other direction. And the third law of eye gaze is conveying temporal information. The eye gaze also conveys temporal information. For example, talking of the present, maybe present tense, if you want to communicate present tense in Tanzanian Sign Language, the eyes can be either fixated down or fixated ahead. A sign like today, Leo, today, you're pointing down, then the eyes are fixated down or either fixated ahead of the signer. But talking of the future, the eyes of the signer should be fixated ahead, far ahead. Then a sign like tomorrow or later on, the eyes should be fixated far ahead. But in case of the past tense, talking of the sign like a long time ago, then the head of the signer is tilted aside. Therefore, even the gaze is directed or set facing aside to denote that it is long time ago. The fourth role of the eye gaze is denoting pronominal reference. Maybe denoting pronoun. For example, if you fixate your eyes ahead of you, it simply denotes the second person pronoun, like you. But if set aside, it simply denotes the third person pronoun, that he or she. So it simply denotes that when set ahead, it simply denotes the second person pronoun, and when fixated aside, it simply denotes that the third person pronoun. And the other role is marking number and quantity. The eye gaze can also use it to be mark numbers or quantity. That in a sign like they is moved from one point to the other point of the body. Therefore, it denotes more than one person and not just a single person. And the last role is just to indicate role shift. For example, if maybe in a sentence you are shifting the role from someone to someone else, therefore the eye gaze also should be shifted from that particular person to the other. Just have a look on a sentence like this one. Father told his son to go to church. That kanisani kule baba mtoto wake ambia enda. that if the father is talking to the son, then the eye gaze should be facing down. If the son is replying, then the eye gaze should face in the other direction, the opposite direction. Then for the eye gaze set fixing above to denote that he is talking to the father. Therefore, this simply denotes who is talking. That if the father is talking to the son, then the gaze will be downward in an opposite direction. Then if the son is talking to the father, then the eye gaze should be set in a different direction, but fixated above to denote that he is talking to an elder one. So we have done with that one. Let's now move to the conclusive part of our presentation. TSL, like any other natural sign language, employ the range of distinct eye gaze pattern to diverse a linguistic function. The eye gaze in TSL perform different roles, such as performing grammatical, referential, spatial, and discourse lore, confirming its status as a full integrated as non-manual marker. But also it also includes spatial, indicates spatial and the discourse roles, as I said earlier. And therefore, understanding of the eye gaze depends the analysis of the TSL morphosyntax structures and the grammatical use. Therefore, if one does not know how to use appropriately the eye gaze, then he or she should communicate in appropriate message. And if does, communicate the right information. Thank you so much. That marks the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We can now begin the question and answer section. For reasons of accessibility, please type your question in the chat if possible, and I will read it out. If you would like to ask a voice question, raise your hand in the nonverbal controls present underneath the participant panel, and I will send you a request to unmute. Please remember that the webinars are recorded so that if you ask a question, this will be part of the recording and will be released on the YouTube channel. So there are a couple of questions from Andy in the chat, Daudi, and they're all sort of related to each other. So I'm going to read them all out together and then you can address them together. What is your observation in a conversation? If a signer talks to you about something they will do tomorrow, would they have eye contact with you or break contact? Or actually, do you want to answer them all individually?
I think I have, I may prefer to answer each one.
Yeah, I think that is better.
Yes. Of course, the eye contact when conversing is very important. It is very important. It is there that you have to look at each other. And if it happened that maybe he's talking about tomorrow, then he will shift the eye gaze to denote that he is talking of tomorrow. Then take back the eye, the gaze back to the one who is referring to, so as to denote that the conversation is going on. Therefore, it will be shifted in order to indicate that he is talking of tomorrow, then taken back to denote that he is still talking to the same person.
And then father-son communication. What happens if the son is taller than his father? Would the son still look upwards to his dad?
Yes. If the son is taller, this does not signify that maybe the height of a person, but it simply indicates that one is the father. He is he is in a certain class above than the other. This also is also observed similarly when maybe you are talking of a story, such as someone talking to God. that God should, the eyes should fixate above to denote God, because he is in a certain class above than the human being. And when referring to human being, then God, the eyes of the one referring to God should be fixated downward in order to denote that he is talking to a human being and not God anymore. Therefore, even if it could happen that a parent is shorter and the son is taller, but the same eye gaze should be maintained in order to denote that this is a parent and this is a son.
Peggy asks a question is in the chat as well about what about those who are afraid of constant eye gaze?
Eye gaze in Tanzanian Sign Language is part and parcel of an articulator. Therefore, for the message to be communicated effectively, there must be the effective use of the eye gaze. So if it happened that maybe he or she diverge the eyes, then the message will be distorted or will be missed. So the eye gaze should be there, should be maintained, especially the eye contact.
It looks like Peggy has a follow-up comment about father-son communication, and then Andrew, I think, is also asking a question about this situation. So I'm going to tell you both at the same time. So Peggy says, for the case of father-son eye contact, I think the son will look down to the father if the father is shorter. Looking up is like looking away from the reference person. So this seems odd. And then Andrew asks, following on Andy's father-son question, in addition to sons addressing fathers and people addressing God, does the relationship apply to things like younger siblings addressing their older siblings? Do you always look up at people you would greet with shikamo in Swahili?
Yes, do you always look up at people when you greet with the shikamo in Swahili? We have two ways of presenting shikamo. So it can be either shikamo, pressing the palm on your on above your head, or shikamo, and the head is tilted down to denote some kind of it sounds like politeness. It sounds like politeness to all those polite signs are accompanied with a head tilted down. So it is shikamo, asante, and asante, shukrani, and whatever. So that behave a bit differently.
Ellie asks, how many people use Tanzanian Sign Language? Do you have an idea about that? Also, is the Tanzanian Sign Language used outside of Tanzania? And is it somehow related to some other sign languages spoken around? Do you want those one at a time?
Okay, yes, I can say that.
How many people use Tanzanian Sign Language?
The census of 2022, the census of Tanzanian census of 2022, it denotes that, reveals that there are almost 500,000 Lakitano deaf individuals. Lakitano, almost deaf, 500,000 deaf individuals. So it hasn't specified that how many use sign language. I think I should have to work on that. But the rough estimation of the deaf individuals in the country is almost like that. And the second one was if other people outside Tanzania use Tanzanian Sign Language.
Yes. Yes,
Tanzanian Sign Language is the language like any other. Even right here in Tanzania, there are some people, especially those who got the chance maybe to travel abroad, maybe America. When they came back, sometimes they have the sign they adopted the sign from American Sign Language. So anybody can use Tanzanian Sign Language, but we should have to remember that sign language is not universal. The Tanzanian Sign Language is quite different from Kenyan Sign Language, is quite different from Ugandan Sign Language, is quite different from American Sign Language, but anybody is free to use it if he or she may make himself in a position of learning it. So you're most welcome to learn Tanzanian Sign Language, but put in mind that Tanzanian Sign Language is not universal at all.
I'm going to briefly add a question of my own while we're on this topic. Do you know how much variation there is inside of Tanzania in the sign language?
Okay, variation. Of course, no research have done to specify that how many variation is there, but variation is still existing. For example, talking of Bibles, we have got there is an organization which translates Bible for the deaf. It is called the BIRAT. We used to call it like that, BILAT. That particular organization have got almost two sections. There is the other section that translate the Bible, which go in different region, quite different from Kilimanjaro. Quite different from Kilimanjaro. And there are other section which translate the Bible specifically for Kilimanjaro people, and there's Arusha zone. So things like that. But also, there are also some kind of variation from Zanzibar. There is some vocabularies that people from deaf from Zanzibar which are not there in Tanzania mainland. So there is no exactly number of those variation, or how many variation existing, but still the variation is there.
And another question on this sort of demographics and variation topic, Andy asks, do all those 500,000 know TSL? Is there a rough estimate how many are without language, even just a guess?
Yes, especially those who know sign language much better, especially the standardized one, are those who ever attended the school. But the rest, some of them are using the local signs, those home signs, and things of such a kind. Maybe let me also work on it. Let me take it and work on it as well, so that to get exact number, I'll visit Chavita.
So Peggy asked, are there regional dialects of TSL? KSL has dialects just like spoken languages. And Andy comments, smaller sign languages are found in these areas: Moshi Arusha Sign Language, Tabora Sign Language, and Njombe Sign Language. You also mentioned Zanzibar. Are there any other regional sign languages you know about?
Yeah, those are the regions that have a bit different, because those regions are normally cited because they are among the regions which, when deaf education introduced, those are the regions that school were established. So those missionaries who came and introduced the school right there brought them with their certain kind of vocabularies and things of such a kind. So that's why they behaved differently. So we have Kilimanjaro, we have Zanzibar, we have Tabora, and things of such a kind. But the rest of Tanzania, such as Mwanza, Mara, they tended to behave the same.
And Bonnie asks, are these smaller sign languages not mutually intelligible with TSL?
There is close relationship, except for some signs which are regional specified. Yes, but most of them, they have a close relationship.
Even Zanzibar?
Yes, even Zanzibar. Even Zanzibar, we are closely, though some signs are quite different. Some signs are quite different from us.
Peggy asks, is there any Western Sign Language influence on TSL?
Yes, the influence of Western? Yes, of course, there is. Especially talking of a region like Kilimanjaro, they were affected mostly by Finland, because the Finnish are the one who came and introduced the first school, Mwanga School for the Deaf. Therefore, there is number of signs which are related to Finnish Sign Language, such as the sign like, let me demonstrate, sign like nani. Right here we do nani to mean who, nani, nani to mean who, nani, who. But like there in Kilimanjaro do nani, nani to mean who, who. And also the sign like mwanafunzi, student, we do student, student. But for the people from Kilimanjaro do it, they are putting the palm like this, then the thumb tapping the palm like this, mwanafunzi, mwanafunzi, to denote that a student. So there is some kind of influence from those countries. But talking of a region like Tabora, have been influenced by, where are those? There is a certain organization called the Kentaris. Yes, of course, it is different country from Finland, quite different country. So there is some kind of an influence, but also not only that, but also there are other signs that we also borrowed from American Sign Language. When you have a look on manual alphabet that we are using, is closely related to American Sign Language, except the letter G. They're doing it like this way, but we are doing this way, G or G. And also the sign, the letter H, they're doing it this way, but we are doing it this way. Yes, so that is some slight variation. But also the sign like America, we are doing it the same way as they does, and other signs of such a kind.
Andy asks, is there an estimate of how many signers are found in Zanzibar?
Not sure of it also. Maybe I'll have to work on it.
He also asks, how did you choose your audience of 15 signers in Dar? Did you work with different ages, genders and ages, youngest to oldest?
Yes, of course, those whom I worked with were elders, above 18 years of age. And one of the criteria that he or she must have been exposed to the use of Tanzanian Sign Language for not less than 10 years and above. Yes, and they were different. I mean, some were women and some were men. And I didn't include young ones or those children and whatever, because of the procedures of going and ask maybe the permission from their parents and whatever. Yes, so I concentrated to an elder person only.
Peggy asks, is TSL taught as a standalone subject in deaf and hearing schools? What is the medium of instruction for deaf students, Kiswahili or TSL or both?
Yes, that is a challenge which troubles much with Tanzanians. Sign language is not taught as a standalone subject. Even though there is subject, Kiswahili subject, English subject, but sign language is not taught as a standalone. Is not totally taught as a standalone subject. Even though deaf students in inclusive class, they are provided with sign language interpreters, and if it happened that maybe they are in special school, those teachers, they must have the skills on sign language, so they sign directly. But it is not taught as a standalone subject.
What is the medium of instruction, she also asks?
The medium of instruction for the primary school level is Swahili, and for the secondary and above is English.
So, but for deaf students?
For deaf students, for primary school level, they are using sign language because their teachers knows sign language, so they communicate using sign language. But when it comes to the assessment, they assess they should write standard Swahili. That's the problem, of course. I remember even yesterday we were in an inclusive conference. We presented and asked that we voiced that why should not the Tanzanian Sign Language be made a language of communication for them? So we presented and we asked the Ministry of Education to think about it. So we are still waiting for it. But right now, Swahili and English is still the medium of communication, despite the fact that they are provided with sign language interpreters. But when it happened that they are supposed to answer the examination, they should answer in standard Swahili or standard English without considering the grammar of Tanzanian Sign Language.
So Andy asks, what would you guess from your experience? How many signers are deaf? Of deaf, a rough percentage.
The rough percentage?
So how many signers are the children of deaf people and grew up signing?
Oh, the signers who are children of deaf adults, of course, there are many, though I don't have exact number of how many they are. Maybe let me take all those as an assignment and should work on them.
Andrew asks, in your talk, you mentioned eye gaze as an indicator of number, as in the pronoun nyinyi, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Do speakers of TSL use eye gaze when communicating about events which occur multiple times or to multiple people? Events we may call pluractional. For example, is the eye gaze different in a form like the man greets the girl once and the man greets the girl every day and the man greets the girls?
In case of greetings, maybe if it is habitual, maybe done every day, no, it does not focus on the gaze. But talking of maybe if we want to say maybe there are number of computers somewhere, then we shall indicate the sign for computer, then ipo. We sign ipo with the eye gaze following the movement of the hand, that ipo, to denote that they are there, they are present. Things of such a kind. That's how they denote number. But for the case of denoting habitual, not at all.
What do you do for habitual?
Habitual, for example, maybe I want to say that I go to school every day. Kila siku mimi shule kule enda.
So reduplication.
The action is replicated, but not of the eye gaze. Or mimi kula. It simply denotes that I'm eating. I used it to eat. Yes, things of such a kind.
Andy asks, what do you know about the literacy level of deaf people in Tanzania? I think you work at the university with deaf people, right?
Definitely.
So are a lot of deaf people making it to university that they have good literacy, or are there a lot of deaf people who are not really getting literacy, or both?
Of course, there is a very good system for at primary school level. So most of them, they are doing it good when they are at primary school level. But the things become much complicated when they get to secondary school level and above. Very few chance to reach at university level, because when they get to secondary school, remember that to them, Swahili is almost the second or the third language, because some language is their first language. Then comes Swahili. Then maybe the vernacular language, then Swahili. So when they come to the secondary school level, shifted now from those languages to English, there where the things become much complicated. So most of them drop there and join vocational training and things of such a kind that want vocational skills. Most of them joined, and very few chanced there and join into advanced level for education, then to university.
How do deaf kids learn a vernacular/local language that has no rating system yet?
Yes, for those who chanced to get knowledge about the vernacular, especially those who got who lose their hearing at certain age where they have the language already. For example, he's living right there in a village and they're using a certain vernacular language and maybe got hearing. I mean, he lose his or her hearing at the age of 9, probably, or 10. Automatically he or she could have some knowledge of the vernacular language. But for those who are born with deafness, it's very hard for them to capture. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think those are all of the questions and comments for today. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that recordings of all of the presentations in the Rift Valley webinar series can be found on the Rift Valley Network YouTube page, and entries for each presentation are added to the Rift Valley bibliography. I would like to thank Daudi and Julius again for their presentation and everyone else for participating today. I hope to see you again at our next webinar.